The movie opens in September 1940 when a group of aircraft are in battle. It's the British forces against the Nazis, and one of the British aircraft, along with its pilot, is attacked mid-air. This tragic attack causes him to lose control of the aircraft, and he ends up crashing into the ocean. He dies, and as the scene transitions 4 years later, we are introduced to a soldier named Earl Kirk. He is deeply saddened by the pilot's demise, which has traumatized him greatly. His fellow soldiers, Harry and Ed, try to support him. Harry suggests to Ed that they take him to a military doctor, but Earl insists he is fine. Later, we meet the 150th Squadron, gathered in their tents. They are Earl's flight crew, and a replacement for the deceased pilot has arrived to join them. They mock him for a bit, but once he introduces himself, they let him settle in. Back with Earl, he is in his superior lieutenant's office. Despite his trauma, he is given another task to be in the skies once again, but he suggests the aircraft isn't operational at the moment, as it needs service. The lieutenant insists this is a must, and that he and his boys are on duty. Before he departs, Earl is given another fellow marshal to assist him. His name is Ray. At night, the soldiers are in a bar having the usual chit-chat. They are hitting on girls and betting on who will sleep with them that night. Earl isn't there initially, as he is their superior, but he comes in a while later. He is waiting to meet with his wife, who is waiting for him in the bar. He approaches her and flirts with her. Her name is Deborah, and they are looking forward to having a baby and starting a family. They go out for a walk, and Earl tells her he is assigned to another mission. It turns out Deborah's father is the lieutenant, and she insists they give this assignment to another pilot, but Earl thinks it's immoral and that he has to do it. Angered, Deborah leaves him standing there. The next day, the lieutenant gives a briefing about the mission. He says fuel tanks, oil, and factories are still functional, as they did not cause as much damage as they hoped in the last raid on the Germans. These factories are now fueling the German Panzer Division. The job is to hit the factories and hinder the Panzer from moving. Outside, Earl gathers his team and tells them they will be taking off in a minute. The team, in total, consists of 5, including the new guy who joined them. The boys have a custom of urinating on the wheels before the aircraft takes off, and here they do the same for good luck. Once in the skies, the Eagle flies between the clouds for several minutes, but soon enough, the mid-air flak released by the Nazis appears. These are black explosions that happen out of nowhere, causing the new guy to become stressed. His breathing rate increases and his oxygen level alerts him. The others calm him down on the radio, but soon enough the Nazis appear and the shootout begins. The team on Earl's aircraft starts the attack, but the Nazi aircraft is much larger and stronger, so they quickly get overpowered. For a while, it seems the shooting is from both sides, and they are both attacking, but not long after, the new guy's gun gets jammed and he is unable to defend against the attack. His aircraft explodes and he ends up dead, unbeknownst to the others. Earl orders Don, another fellow, to see if he is still alive, but Don announces they lost him. Now, with the stakes being higher, the group has to think of another way to proceed. Meanwhile, the Nazis are attacking them, altering the temperature, fuel, and oxygen levels of their aircraft. Finally, Earl decides they need fuel, whether they get back to the camp or land in another foreign land. However, it does not allow them to do either of those things. While flying over German land, Earl thought they could launch an attack right here and then. They decide to throw out the bombs from there and decide their fate afterward. So, Earl opens the bottom of the aircraft, releasing the explosives on the target landing. Don and Ray are in the back, begging Earl to take a safe route as the flak explosions mid-air are getting stronger and stronger. Elsewhere, we see another soldier on the land being captured by the Germans. The Nazis are merciless, and the fate of the man is indifferent. The lieutenant arrives and shoots him dead right away after realizing he is from the British Air Force. Back with the soldiers in mid-air, they decide to somehow land the aircraft and hope it lands safely. Earl, initially hesitant, decides to comply and land the aircraft. However, as they were descending, the aircraft lost its balance, and they had to take off some things from inside, such as bombs and their heavy firearms. Even after that, they struggle to keep it stable, but Earl manages to slowly descend into the land and slide it swiftly. The plane crashes, losing its balance, but it is soft enough to protect the soldiers from a hard impact. The pilots are okay. Once they survive, they check on each other and find they are all alive, except for Harry, whose legs are severely injured. They try to give him first aid and some morphine, but he still struggles to breathe, and the pain agonizes him. Ray, meanwhile, shouts at Earl, blaming him for accepting the mission despite the aircraft needing service. This causes a heated argument amidst the tragic situation, and Ed intervenes to protect his friend Earl. He says Earl is trying his best to keep them alive, and that no one should be blamed. Once they calm down, they decide to seek help for Harry and help him get up. Meanwhile, the scene transitions to Deborah, who is eagerly waiting to hear of her men's return. But to her disappointment, a soldier comes to her doorstep to inform her that the team hasn't returned or been heard from since their departure. Back with the soldiers, the boys are stranded in a foreign land. Now, they aren't clear on where to go next because, after all, this is enemy territory, and the enemies could kill them any time if found. Their only option is to stay alive until they reach friendly lines, where Harry can get help and they too can be rescued. Earl firmly opposes Ed's idea of surrendering and sticks with the first plan. While they were conversing, they heard a German tank and its army approaching from a distance. The group quickly manages to hide before their arrival, or else their fate will end right there. Harry, in excruciating pain, has his mouth covered by Ed. After the army passes, Ray calls out to them, and they get up to start their journey. After a few walks in the forest, they come across a farm, and Earl proposes they go inside the house. Don has heard rumors that local farmers shoot British soldiers if they find them, so he insists it might not be a good idea. Earl suggests he and Don enter the place to inspect, and when given a signal, the others could come in. They agree on this point, and Don and Earl go inside. Shortly after, they give the signal that it's safe, and the others follow. It's a cozy place, and the group finds comfort for the day. At night, they create a fire and brew tea. They gather by the fire and confide while chatting about their times in the Air Force. Harry is now feeling better, and they share laughs and jokes. However, Earl is secluded, thinking about Deborah. He has disappointed her, and all he wants is to go back to her. The next morning, while the boys were sleeping, a German woman, supposedly the farm owner, came to feed her chickens. She doesn't see them at first. Ray and Ed do, and they wake up the others. The woman finally sees them and screams for them not to hurt her. Don, who had his college education in Germany, speaks Dutch. He tells them she is pleading for them not to kill her. Earl tells him to inform her that they thought the place was abandoned and that they meant no harm. They quickly get ready to leave, but before they can do so, German soldiers arrive in their vehicle. It turns out they saw the wrecked aircraft and assumed the enemies couldn't be far. The boys quickly depart from the back door the woman shows them. However, Earl stays behind to buy them some time. The German woman opens the door and talks to them. She says she didn't see any British soldiers or the aircraft they were talking about. Despite her warning, the men barge into the house to inspect it. Thankfully, Earl manages to run when he notices they are about to barge in. He returns to his team. Meanwhile, the German soldiers see the fireplace they created and are sure the woman is lying. As one of them starts to beat the woman, Ray barges in but gets knocked out and falls. They put him in the vehicle, and he is about to be taken away to their camp. Meanwhile, the boys return through the back door and witness this. Earl wants to follow and rescue Ray, but Ed resists his idea, fearing the Germans will kill them too. However, Earl is determined to find Ray and asks the woman where the Germans are taking him. It's possibly the headquarters, so Don asks her if there are any shortcuts to the place. The woman explains the route to them, and they decide to leave. But Ed is still resistant and tells Earl they must depart if they take Ray inside the headquarters. The headquarters is pretty far away, so the boys think of stalking them on the way, using the shortcuts. Shortly after, we see the German men in their vehicle when they stop at one point. It was Ed lying on the dust, mimicking as if he was dead. Once they get out to check if he's alive, Earl comes from behind, pointing a gun at them. The Germans quickly understand it's a setup, and Earl orders Ray to get out of the vehicle. But as one of the Germans tries to shoot, Earl kills him. The shootout begins between the others and the remaining Germans, and soon enough, the boys hide in the forest seeking cover. Meanwhile, the German hides behind the car to refill his bullets, but Ed comes from behind, taking him under control. Shortly, his friends come out from the forest, and they start to search the vehicle to find relevant documents. They come across some and decide to take them with them. As for the German that survived, Earl decides to take him with them as he could be useful. However, before they could go, another German vehicle along with two men arrived. A shootout begins between them, and the boys immediately take cover by running into the forest. Meanwhile, Don and Harry are on the farm waiting for the boys to come back with Ray. Earl and the others barge into the house and demand Harry and Don run. They help Harry stand and then depart, leaving the woman alone. The main lieutenant has arrived and is demanding answers from the farm lady. She cries and tells him everything this time, and even exposes where they are headed. The man, as merciless as he is, orders his men to kill her, and they end up murdering the innocent lady. Meanwhile, the boys are running, but Harry becomes weak and can't go far. They slow down for a while, and Earl decides they could carry him from here. But just then, the lieutenant arrives. and orders the British Air Force to surrender. Earl announces they have an injured man, and they only wish to get him help. The man, as the liar he is, tells them he could give them help if they put their guns down. While Earl is on the verge of believing him, a soldier informs the lieutenant that British patrols are arriving on the riverside. Soon, Earl and the others understand help is on their way. The Germans quickly depart with the order of the lieutenant. Once the patrols are approaching, the Germans hide to attack them, so Harry decides he cannot let this happen. He has to alert the patrols that it's not safe, but once he gets up to tell them, the Germans shoot him down right then and there. With that gunfire, a shootout breaks out between the patrols and the lieutenant's side. When Ed saw Harry had died, he got angry and wanted to avenge him. Earl stops him as they cannot stand a chance. Sadly, Ed leaves his friend there. They manage to stay alive until night, and once they find cover in the dark, the four men decide to enter the heated war zone between the two enemy lines. From there, Earl tells them this is the last difficulty they have to pass to be in the safe zone. They man up and continue to follow him. In the morning, the run continues to reach the safe zone, but this time they are spotted by the German lieutenant. He and his team chase them, and at one clear point the lieutenant shoots at Don. He falls, crumbling, and Ed comes to his rescue. He helps him get up, but the lieutenant manages to shoot at him too. Now both are on the ground and incapable of making their escape. Soon the lieutenant arrives and finishes them off, leaving Earl and Ray the only survivors. But before the two run far, the lieutenant manages to strike them at their feet. They both fall helpless, and the Germans arrive to collect the token. But before they could finish them off, the British patrols arrive and kill the lieutenant and his team. Ray lies unconscious, and Earl calls on him in a final attempt. He is dead, and the patrol comes to check if Earl is shot. Thankfully, he is fine, and he becomes the sole survivor in their history.